Hey guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and in today's video I want to talk about the Raid Digest that went out on Friday last week, where it was talking about some changes that they are making to Polymorph and to Stone Skin. And to be honest, we need to have a bit of a line in the sand conversation about what they are proposing to change here, because this is just like development work for no gain whatsoever. So let's just see what we've got going on here. They do a little bit of a shout out about the fact that we've got to 5 episodes of Call of the Arbiter. There's the 6th one coming out today if it's not already out by the time this video comes out live. We've got the PvP rebalance. So if anyone has played top end arena, played in platinum, played in high end live arena, you know by now that pretty much the meta is Polymorph with Taras, Marichka, and some form of support around that, whether it's Ultimate Death Knight, Siphi, Duchess. That's kind of the setups. Rotus does come in a little bit more in live arena, but if you look at pretty much all the platinum resets, it's mostly Taras, Marichka these days, and then with Stone Skin and with Polymorph. So what they're trying to do is combat that meta. That's a good thing. We don't want metas to become stagnant because players become bored and then it kind of leads to a bad gameplay. So let's see what they got to say here. We constantly monitor players' experience in PvP modes and intend to bring a greater tactical variety to arena battles. Good. That's what we want. We want variety. We want direction. So what they're saying here is, well, we want to open up more meta options. We want to make more champions viable. We want there to be more sort of strategy involved in arena. Great. That's what we all want. As well as make them unfold at a more brisk and dynamic pace, so it becomes harder to build a very sturdy team that takes ages to defeat. Okay, so they want to kill the tank meta. Well, they've spent the last 2.5 years trying to kill the speed meta, and they did that by bringing in the tank meta. So they've kind of created a self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess, to some extent. Earlier, we mentioned that the first step on the path, Polymorph will start requiring accuracy on all but the 6th blessing. Well, that changes nothing. We've done a video on that. It changes absolutely nothing, because generally, if you need to strip or place debuffs or steal buffs or anything of that, remove buffs, you need accuracy, you don't need resistance, so your debuffers are not going to be running resistance, which means the enemy's Polymorph champion requires very little accuracy. And to be honest, where Polymorph really matters, they're already at high blessing anyway. This changes nothing. It doesn't affect the Polymorph blessing, it doesn't improve it at all. So the first step is not a step. But that's only the beginning, and here are some of the other changes on our agenda. Okay, we got changes. The deflection set and the passive part of Yumiko's A2 will be able to return the sheep debuff back the same way they return other debuffs. Yes, even on the 6th level of Polymorph. Well, there's no difference between level 1 Polymorph and level 6 Polymorph to begin with. It did the same debuff, did the same protection status. You didn't touch those. All you did is just change how you can place it. So that's kind of a irrelevant statement. Now, let's talk about this. So they're basically saying the deflection set has, I think, a 20% chance to reflect debuffs back. And then Yumiko is like a 75% chance. Like, Yumiko is way stronger for this. What they're basically saying here now is, in order for them to build greater tactical variety, if you want to counter Yumiko, if you want to counter Polymorph, you must have Yumiko. Because deflection set is so low a chance, it's not worth using. 20% chance. Like, what you're going to understand is if you choose deflection, you're dropping Stone Skin, you're dropping protection sets, Guardian, Bolster, Defiant sets, Regeneration set. You're dropping more powerful sets for the slow, slim chance that 20% of the time you might send the Polymorph back. Versus Yumiko, who can build whatever she wants and then still place that Hex debuff and have that. You're basically saying now, Yumiko is essential if you want to deal with Polymorph. That's not greater tactical variety. That's less tactical variety. Because now you're basically going, that Warlord that was already starting to get kind of pushed out of the meta because Taras fears him, requiring him to have resistance, and he attacks when he does it, which means he can cause things to cause different problems. Well, now Yumiko is just even better again. I don't really understand how making it so that one Void Legendary champion has the ability to send Polymorph back adds to a greater tactical variety in arena. Now, if they basically came along and said, if an enemy is hexed by a Mithrala hex or a curse set, then they can receive the sheep debuff instead, that's adding greater tactical variety. Sure, you still have to place the hex debuff, but hey, at least anyone can roll a hex champion or roll a curse set and place that hex debuff and then send it back. That's tactical variety. Requiring one Void Legendary champion and a 20% deflection set that requires you to sacrifice pretty much all of the good sets that make make arena viable for a lot of champions, it's not tactical variety. So the first point is an awful change. I don't know why they've changed it. It only helps the people who've got Yumiko. And even then, it probably doesn't. Like, the second part makes them unfold at a brisk and dynamic pace. Well, you haven't solved the problem of polymorph in which everything slows down. All you've done is you've moved it to another problem. You've moved the problem to another champion. You haven't fixed the fundamental problem of polymorph. Now, the next thing is even more crazier. The stone skin will no longer remove or protect from getting HP burn debuff. Okay, so you can burn stone skin now. Moreover, the HP burn will deal 5 times damage to champions under stone skin. A quick reminder here is that the Incinerate blessing can make that impact even more tangible. Okay, let's have a look at how tangible that means. So this is basically a comparison of how HP burn works. When you burn a target with HP burn, all targets will basically take 3% of the max HP of the burnt champion's HP. So, for example, if I've got a 100,000 HP enemy that I've burnt and they take the HP burn proc, then all enemies will take 3,000 damage. So now, obviously, if we put in the Incinerate bonuses, which is 1, 3, and 5, at 1 you get 25%, at 3 you get 50%, and at 5 you get 100%. And then at 6 star, you basically reduce turn meter based on the percentage of the burn that you've done, which would be 6%. So when you're at fully 6 star awakened, you're going to deal 6,000 damage to like all enemies if there's 100,000 HP. And if they're like a low HP nuker, then you're going to do 1,800 damage at maximum awakening blessing. Now the turn meter would be quite good if it was actually AoE, but it's not. It's single target. So essentially all you're going to do is you're going to decrease the burn champion by 6% when they already have like 0 turn meter because they've just taken a turn. So I don't really see the value of that. Now maybe the code is not quite translated to the game. It seems to suggest that you drop the turn meter of the single target. So the target that got burnt is the target that gets dropped. Maybe it's going to work on AoE, like the burn is an AoE effect, so maybe it drops everyone by 6%, which if that's the case is not terrible, but it's still not like, you're better off with the temporal chains if it's a legendary champion, right? Because that's going to drop it just consistently all the time. It's not a one-time action. But the main problem I want to highlight here is 1,800 damage to a 30,000, which is, you know, roughly what a nuker would be, or to a reasonably built tank, which is about 70,000. 4,200 damage is never going to kill anyone. You cannot use HP burn as a solution for dealing damage in arena. This needs to be like 6 for it to be relevant. It needs to be a 500% damage increase for it to have any relevancy in arena. Then we are talking about a decent option, right? If we've got a 600% bonus on that 5 star, not 100%. It needs to be like times 5. It cannot be just like times 2. It's just not enough. You're never going to kill anyone. Now, what they've changed in this setup here, if we go back to this view, they've made it so that stone skin will no longer protect against it. So you can burn and it will deal 5 times to the damage under stone skin. Sounds really good, but then let's go back to what we were talking about. So we're going to get the Incinerate bonus first, so we're going to times that by 2, and then we're going to get it by a times 5, which is a times 6. So we're going to end up doing 39,600. So it's a pretty good chance you can burn the shield away quite quickly, but you're not burning champion HP. You're burning champion shield. You're burning the stone skin shield. So sure, you've removed the stone skin. That's great. Now what do you do? Well, as soon as the stone skin drops off, you're doing no damage. And now you've basically got a bot that can't do anything. This is before we even go down the realms of what happens if a champion has got block debuffs, because you can't burn through block debuffs. What happens if there's a Pythian on the team, or or another cleanser on the team, like an Elva Autumnborn? You lose your burn. What happens if you get polymorph from placing the burn? Like, we haven't really dealt with any of these other problems. You're basically saying if you have a perfect scenario, you'll be able to destroy a stone skin shield quicker. The stone skin shield is not the problem. It's the champions wearing the shield. It's the no speed ultimate death knight that stops you doing anything for 2 turns. Sure, I can burn the shield down, but then I've got a bot of a champion. I don't have enough space. There's not enough space in arena teams for you to just bring a champion that can destroy a stone skin shield. Now, unless they change it, and I'll play devil's advocate here. Perhaps they change it so that it doesn't destroy the champion's stone skin shield. It destroys their actual HP bar. If that's the case, then it's actually quite good. But I don't think they will. I think it's just going to burn the shield. Normal HP burn burns the shield. It doesn't burn the champion's health. So what I'm trying to kind of get across here is I'm concerned that Plarium don't actually understand the fundamental problem of the arena meta here. And there is a bit of a discussion to have around what kind of tier of meta we're talking about. But in the top tier of arena meta, we're talking about the platinum level and the highest level of live arena. Taras and Marichka are the problem. Polymorph is the problem. You're trying to basically find solutions by going around the houses rather than just going, okay, clearly these particular items are too strong. Let's take the power curve down. Let's just deal with the problems. So for example, in Diablo 4, there was a situation where certain dungeons would give far more density of elite champions, which would give more experience. Instead of Blizzard going around and finding different ways to make more XP work better, they went straight and they said, those dungeons are giving too much power, we're going to take the level down. And neutralized it across all the other dungeons. Now, some people were unhappy with that change, but you solved you went straight at the problem and solved the base issue. You didn't go round the houses finding different ways to try and supplement the issue and try and bring it back up, in which players still ran the same dungeon because it was still efficient. They actually targeted the same problem. And I feel like the same issue is here. Until you fundamentally fix polymorph, nothing you change is going to make the arena experience better. Until you fundamentally change the champions that are wearing Stone Skin, like Ultimate Death Knight passive, like the different other champions that you have in Stone Skin, like, you're not going to fundamentally solve the problem. I actually don't think that Stone Skin is that much of a problem in Arena because there is ways to mitigate it. There's ways to get around it. There isn't really a way to get around the fact that Taras is going to one-shot you, or that, you know, Yumiko is going to basically lock you out completely, or that champions such as Harima's passive makes your Soul Reap not work. You know, these different things that make the champion powers are just way too strong. What you need to do with Polymorph is take it back and reduce its power. I was literally talking to a clanmate the other day about it, and I was spitballing ideas, and I basically came up with different solutions that you could do almost immediately to solve the problem that is way better than this. For example, we could make it so that Polymorph could be cleansed, like you did with Brimstone. You made 2 changes to Brimstone, not just the accuracy. You seem to be overlooking that other part. So we could do that. I strongly believe that champions that get polymorphed should have the same stats that the champion that is actually a sheep. Give them the same speed, the same HP, the same defense. If you kill them quicker, fine. But really, a 300 plus speed Mighty Uko shouldn't be taken down to a 152 turn sheep. That's the problem there as well. I think being able to cleanse it, being able to keep those stats is a very good first step. You need to go in and you need to take the power level down on Taras. He is too strong. Marichka is too strong. Doesn't matter how many times you're going to find different ways to burn people, it is too strong. And the other thing you need to realize is half of the blessings are just bad. Incinerate is never going to be good unless you give it a crazy boost of damage. The lethal dose is never going to be good unless you give it a crazy boost of damage. You can't just come in here and go, well, you know, it's going to burn 5 times more to Stone Skin. Well, that's not really going to help us because we've got to get past too many hurdles. Debuffers in the top end meta do not exist. Simple as. There's a reason why the premier debuffer, which is Romantu, is not used in the arena meta because he just polymorphs himself. Now you could say, well, you know, people are using Stun Uko. Sure, but they're using him to crowd control. They're not using him to debuff or, you know, obviously you can remove buffs and stuff like that. But even he still gets polymorphed with it. It's a useful tool in live arena, but you probably won't see him much in platinum arena. You're going to see the Taras Marichka over and over again because it's just easy. Why would they even use Quintus? They mentioned Quintus coming down in here about different things he was doing with Ultimate Death Knight. I've spoken to a few sort of platinum players, and to be honest, they're sitting there going, well, why do I need Quintus? I've got Taras. Quintus doesn't do anything. He's too squishy. We don't even see any playtime with Baron anymore because he's too one-dimensional. So I could go on and on. Like, for example, here's some examples of how you solve the problem. Why don't you make HP burn and poison a single blessing and it deals 500% damage? Just for arena. Perfect. Now my poisoners could be lethal. Now I might have to bring cleanse. Maybe you put a blessing that actually counters polymorph. For example, you could have it so that a blessing makes a champion immune to polymorph. That's all it does. But hey, if it's like someone like a Romantu, I need them to place debuffs. If he's immune to polymorph, then it gives value to me bringing that. I can put it on there, and then polymorph isn't so powerful anymore because it can still polymorph your DPSs and your other champions because they might want to take a Lightning Cage, or they might want to take Ward of the Fallen, or they might want to take a Soul Reap if they've got the right setup. But you've now given an option that a champion can just counter polymorph. Now you could also have a penalty that if it does counter it, it does something to, like, you know, manipulate it so it's not so super powerful. You can balance it off that way. You could have a blessing that goes, if an ally is polymorphed, there's a 50% chance to reflect that back to the person that just polymorphed them. So it makes it more of a punishment to have a polymorph. These are just some ideas that I've come up with without even thinking. I haven't even written it down on a bit of paper. I could probably find much better options. But until we fundamentally fix the problem of polymorph and really, really powerful champions, you're not going to get greater tactical variety, and you're not going to get a brisk and dynamic pace, because players are going to utilize the tools that you've given them to make it very difficult to lose. So either you need to go back to the drawing board with polymorph and just rebuild it, or you need to tweak the power curve down further so that it's more in line to what I was suggesting in my previous video, where polymorph is actually not such a penalty, right? You pay such a high price to get in polymorphed that it makes it too much of a price to pay. And can we also finally understand that no matter how many times you tell us that the Incinerate Blessing is good, it's not. It's never going to be good. Unless this burns through and beyond the Stone Skin shield, as in it remains even when Stone Skin has fallen off, it's really, really bad because it's not enough. This multiplier needs to be on them regardless whether they have the Stone Skin buff. But I would imagine it's going to stop once they lose the Stone Skin. We'll have to see. But there we go. I just wanted to do a bit of a feedback on this because I just felt like they're trying to tell us they want greater tactical variety and a better dynamic pace. But the changes they're doing is forcing you down the path of needing Yumiko. And the other changes basically, like this HP burn is a complete waste of development time. Nobody's ever going to do it. If I went into looking at our data, I would probably find that it's 0.1% of players that have used Incinerate, and they probably put it on there because they didn't realize or they weren't sure it was going to be very good. Like, I would imagine we have such little usage of that blessing that, to be honest, the only reason why people use Lethal Dose is because it gives you better stats for a bomber. There you go, guys. That is the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next video.